Hello, folks. This is Jacob Harkey. It is February 28th, 2024, and it's nice to see you all again. It's been a few days. So, we're still coming off of this past weekend. What a weekend this past weekend was. We had a lot of activists come into Los Angeles from out of town to protest against Scientology. We had Aaron Smith Levin from Growing Up in Scientology. We had Nora Ames. We had Liz Gale, Liz Ferris. It was a really great weekend, and I got to see a lot of people, some people who I had only previously seen online and only interacted with virtually. It was a lot of fun to get to finally meet some of those people in person. So I wanted to just touch base really quick. I know that I had been consistently streaming almost every day, and then I did have to take a couple of days off after riding that high from consistently streaming every day. I definitely did fall behind on a few things that I needed to get myself caught back up on with regard to school, as I am still a student. But I wanted to pop on today, and just say hi to everybody, get a chance to interact with you all, and then also talk about some quick updates that came in yesterday. So yesterday, William Good, who is also known online as Streets LA or Scientology Audit or Film the Police LA, shared a tweet, which was also shared to his YouTube community page with some information with updates about the cases that were ongoing involving some of the other protesters who were arrested, not this past Friday, but the Friday before that. So here I can see from February 19th that William shared the press release that the LAPD put out claiming that protesters had conspired and planned to attack La Poubelle patrons. And this press release is, of course, referring to the three suspects being DOA or Scott Hochstetter, as well as Danny or Live Danny, and then LA Cam. And the press release from February 19th that was put out by the LAPD mentions that all three suspects were booked for California Penal Section 182, conspiracy, and 22810, unlawful use of tear gas. Now, as many of you will probably remember, last week on Wednesday, so this is 1 week ago today, on February 21st, DOA had a court date scheduled, and up until that point, he had not been released from jail. He was still up in jail up until that day. So many of us were at the courthouse that day. I was there. Confident Chris was there. Chris without a Hellcat was there. Jessica Palmadessa was there. And all of us were there, turning out, ready to support DOA. And it turned out that the case was rejected. Now, in previous videos that I did talking about this, I had mentioned that the charges were dropped. In hindsight, I'm not even sure that that would be the correct language to use because, as I understand it now, the charges were never even formally filed by the Los Angeles District Attorney. In other words, the District Attorney chose not to press charges or not to formally file charges based on what the LAPD had arrested DOA for. So that day, we only got an update about the case involving Scotty. Yesterday, I'll go ahead and scroll up a little bit so that we can see the little update that William published here. He says, just got off the phone with the LA District Attorney's office. The case against all three Scientology La Poubelle protesters were also rejected the same time Scott's were. They don't need to show up for court. So we had believed that day that we found out the update about Scotty's case that it was possible that Cam and Danny were still going to have to show up for court on March 13th, which is also coincidentally L. Ron Hubbard's birthday and Danny Masterson's birthday. But this is good news that William just published that they no longer do have to do that. Now, there are still things that we can continue to keep an eye on with regard to these cases. I am still waiting for a response from the court reporter who was in court taking notes on Josiah Adler's hearings, because I'd definitely like to get the facts a little bit more straightened out as far as what Josiah's case, what updates we can expect to see regarding Josiah's case. And also, I'm still not fully clear about what the current standing is on DOA getting his property back, because for those of you who remember, Aaron Smith Levin did a couple of lives with your lawyer friend Zach, who provided a little bit more context for why it was so hard for DOA to get his property back based on what was taken by the LAPD with their search warrant. And not to be too long-winded and rehash everything that's been said in previous videos, but quickly, as I understand what happened there and why getting DOA's property back has been tough, it's because they held him for too long in jail without putting him in front of a judge, which makes it so that the LA district attorney who oversees LA County can no longer prosecute him based on the felony charges for which he was charged. Now, as I understand it, the LA city attorney may still be able to prosecute him on misdemeanor charges. And during the waiting period, where the consideration period, while the city attorney is deciding whether or not they want to do that, the LAPD does not yet have to return DOA's property to him. Now, I hope that headache can be put behind all of us sooner rather than later. But I did want to quickly acknowledge that that is something that we can still continue to be paying attention to while we are waiting for additional updates to come in. So that was the main update that I wanted to share really quick regarding updates with the protesters' well-being, as far as what we can expect to see and what we can now be put to rest a little bit on with regard to Danny and Cam no longer having to show up to court. I'll quickly say hi to some folks in the chat before I move on to some other topics that I wanted to cover for today. I see Dustin Fountain Avenue says, "Where have you been? 3 days no Harkey. I'm having withdrawals." I appreciate you all who have been looking forward to another stream. I'm here. I had to take care of some stuff. It was school related, but I'll still be popping on as frequently as I can. I don't know that I'll be heading up to Los Angeles to protest again before Friday night. I definitely do have some things that I have to take care of tonight and tomorrow night, but I'll definitely be back up before sooner rather than later. And also I'm liking the name there, Dustin Fountain Avenue. For those who don't know, Fountain Avenue is the street that Big Blue appears on, and Dustin Fountain is getting his channel going. I see you've got the SPTV logo as your profile picture now, which we love to see. So he's located in Clearwater, Florida. And for those of you who would like to support him in his journey, he's looking to start live streaming soon. So I'm sure he'd appreciate all the follows that he could get. That would be really awesome. Let's see, anybody else that I can say hi to real quick before we move on to another topic? Nice to see everybody who is in here. Video Watcher says 2005 called. They want their webcam back. Bro, it's 2024. Get a real camera. You know what? This is something that I will be looking into shortly, because sometimes I'm able to use my iPhone as continuity camera, and because the camera quality on the iPhone is definitely a little bit higher. But yeah, it can be. I agree with you. I think that's going to be something that I'll have to look into soon. St. Louis Scientology audit says, "What's up, Jacob? It's Louis Repetto." Oh, it looks like, did you change your channel name or did you start a new channel specifically for protesting out there? Either way, it's good to see you in here, and I love to see the channel name there. That's awesome. All right, I see Tampa B Man is in here. Hey, Tampa B Man. Lois Lane. I wonder if that's always been your channel name, or if that has anything to do with the Clark Kent jokes that we've been seeing made on here. Tampa B Man says, "Hello, Clark. I see. Doesn't take very long for that to come in. Does it now?" I love to see it, though. I definitely appreciate that. Definitely appreciate the nickname. All right. So what I want to go ahead and do, I'll go ahead and hide the current comment. I want to transition a little bit, and there's a couple of issues that I want to sort of amplify with the platform that I'm growing here. Now that I've got a channel going and that I've got an audience of folks who are tuning in when I go live, which I really love to see, there's other things that are happening around the world, not just related to the world of Scientology, that I want to take a moment to, maybe more than a moment. We'll see how long I end up talking. But I want to take some time to chat about things that I think that are important that are happening in the world. So last week, I did do a live stream talking about Julian Assange and the hearings that were happening in the UK. last week over whether or not Julian Assange would be allowed to appeal his extradition to the United States. And without rehashing everything that I discussed in that video, Julian Assange is an investigative journalist who founded the website WikiLeaks, and he was responsible for publishing a handful of military leaks which exposed what I and many others would consider to be war crimes that were being committed by the United States. And shortly thereafter, he was arrested, and there was quite a journey of traveling between different embassies and between different countries. But currently, he is being held in prison in the United Kingdom, and the United States is aiming to extradite him to the United States to serve out the rest of his life. It's a 175-year sentence, if I'm not mistaken. Now, my opinion is that what Julian Assange has done by publishing the information that he's published should not be a crime that's punishable by the Espionage Act, which is what he's currently being charged with by the United States. Now, the hearings, we won't hear the final ruling from the court that he was in for, as I understand it, it may be about a month. But it's something that I'm going to continue to keep an eye on. I really appreciate all of the positive feedback that I've gotten from those of you who have tuned in, and those of you who did see that video. So thank you very much to those of you who checked that out. Now, today, I'd like to get into a little bit more of a political discussion. Before I do want to just give some reminders of rules that I'd like for us to be mindful of in the chat. Now, I know that when we were talking about issues relating to Scientology and corruption between the Church of Scientology and the LAPD, I would believe that a handful of you who are in the chat, who are tuned into these streams, are probably in agreement with a lot of the things that are being said. Now, when it comes to additional political issues or political discourse, I have no doubt that some of you who may be in agreement with me on certain issues may disagree with me on other issues. And I want to reiterate that that's okay. It's totally okay to disagree, but I will just ask and give a reminder to you all that if you are going to disagree, I do ask that you are being respectful in the chat. And I'm going to do my best to keep an eye on the chat and make sure that discourse is staying respectful. Although there are definitely some things that I'll want to share my screen for, which may make it a little bit tougher for me to keep an eye on the chat. So I want to also give a huge thank you to all of the mods who are in here and doing their best to help me keep an eye on the chat. And this is something that I've been very back and forth in my own head about lately, about do I want to get into politics? Do I want to? Is it a better idea to just keep things focused on Scientology like I've been talking about? But here's the thing. It is an election year. This is 2024. So this coming November, there will be a big presidential election. There will be big local elections that are happening too. I'm currently located in California, and California is going to have primaries coming up very shortly. And in some states, caucuses and primaries have already started. So I figure that now that I've got a bit of a platform that I am building, I want to do what I can to amplify the messages that I think are important. And beyond that, as far as any reservations that I had about getting political on my channel, one thing that I think motivated me to move forward is the fact that, look, we've been talking over the last few weeks quite a bit about police corruption and exposing police corruption, and chatting against and protesting against police corruption, and all of those are political acts. So while I may not have necessarily taken partisan stances clearly in the past, that is something that you can expect moving forward. I will do my part to keep things organized so that on days that I do still go out there on the streets to protest, I'll try to keep the conversation focused on what we're there to protest on those days. But anyway, that's a bit of introduction and just a bit of a reminder of what I'd like for folks to be focused on, and how to make sure that we're being respectful as we're in the chat for today. So what I'd like to do I'll only scratch the surface on a handful of different issues here because when it comes to politics, there's always a lot of things happening in many different corners of the world and many different areas of the political discussion. But to really quickly just introduce kind of where I come at things, I am somebody who, especially over the last couple of years, has tended to be fairly critical of the two-party system that we have in the United States. And I want to remind everybody I'm only 24 years old. So, as far as developing my political consciousness, it's definitely something that's still fairly new to me. But I will say that for the first couple of years of my adulthood, so I turned 18 in 2017, and I started out registered as a Democrat. And I switched my political party affiliation a little bit over a year ago, and I switched to the Green Party. Now, I would imagine that some of you who are in the chat may be unfamiliar with the Green Party, and I completely understand that because political parties outside of the two major parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, don't tend to get a whole lot of airtime. They don't tend to be platformed very much in the mainstream media. But I do think that that's one feature of a democracy that anybody who wants to that any political party should be able to have an outlet to express their views. And so that's part of what I want to do. I want to share a little bit about why I'm in the Green Party. I want to share a little bit about what core values of the Green Party are, and we'll kind of go from there. So I actually am wearing my Green Party of California t-shirt right now. I don't know if y'all have been able to see that. My room is a bit messy right now, so I hope y'all will forgive me for that. But I wanted to share the shirt that I'm wearing. And the next thing that I want to share, I'm going to share my screen, and I want to share some pictures of myself protesting last year. And let me see how I can get to this. I'm still getting used to some of the functions of StreamYard here, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to. Oh, did that not work? You know what? Maybe that didn't work as well as I wanted it to. Let me try one other way. Yeah, sometimes I've got to change screen sharing permissions depending on what I've already granted for. No, is that not going to work? Okay, let's try this. Let's see if I have some luck with this. Oh, nope, lost permission. Okay, well, maybe some of these pictures I can share. Maybe some of these pictures I can share at a different time. But let's go ahead and skip to this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I want to share part of the Green Party's website so that we can look through some of their key values. All right. So this comes from gp.org, which is the Green Party of the United States' official website. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to read through the Green Party's 10 key values, and then I'll read a little bit of what's on the site as a little blurb underneath each of these to explain why these are key values of the Green Party. So, whoops, bump my mic. Grassroots democracy, social justice and equal opportunity, ecological wisdom, nonviolence, decentralization, community-based economics, feminism and gender equity, respect for diversity, personal and global responsibility, and future focus and sustainability. So those are the 10 key values of the Green Party of the United States. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scroll down and read some of the blurbs that appear underneath each of those key values, just to give a little bit more context for what each of these means and why each of these are key values of the Green Party. Grassroots democracy. All human beings must be allowed a say in decisions that affect their lives. No one should be subject to the will of another. We work to improve public participation in every aspect of government and seek to ensure that our public representatives are fully accountable to the people who elect them. We also work to create new types of political organizations that expand the process of participatory democracy by directly including citizens in decision making. So all of that, I would definitely say that I'm fully behind all of that. I think that democracy and having a say in decisions that affect your life is a very important feature of a healthy society. And I think that there's a lot to be said about the way that the two-party system functions in the United States currently, I think that there are a handful of elected representatives and elected government officials who tend to be more accountable to their wealthiest donors as opposed to their everyday people, which can prevent a handful of citizens from really having much of a say in decisions that affect their lives. Um, I won't necessarily. I'm going to try to not give too much commentary on each of these blurbs so that we have time to get through everything in a timely manner. But I'll go ahead and move on. Number two, social justice and equal opportunity. As a matter of right, all persons must have the opportunity to benefit equally from the resources afforded us by society and the environment. We must consciously confront in ourselves, our organizations, and society at large any discrimination by race, class, gender, sexual orientation, age, nationality, religion, or physical or mental ability that denies fair treatment and equal justice under the law. Yeah, totally. I think that equal opportunity, social justice, or equity, as that can sometimes be described, I think that understanding that many people are plagued by whether it's disabilities or class based oppression or race based oppression, that's something that must be acknowledged and steps must be taken to rectify that. And that's something that's important to the Green Party. Moving on. Number three, ecological wisdom. Human societies must function with the understanding that we are part of nature, not separate from nature. We must maintain an ecological balance and live within the ecological and resource limits of our communities and our planet. We support a sustainable society that utilizes resources in such a way that future generations will benefit and not suffer from the practices of our generation. To this end, we must practice agriculture that replenishes the soil, move to an energy efficient economy, and live in ways that respect the integrity of natural systems. So this is definitely a big and important part of the Green Party. I think that there are a handful of people who have heard of the Green Party but might not be super familiar with what the Green Party stands for. But just having the word green in the title, I think that it's probably not hard for a lot of people to deduce that environmentalism and ecological sustainability is definitely important to the Green Party. So divesting from fossil fuels and switching to or prioritizing renewable forms of energy, which are going to be good for the long-term sustainability of the planet, that's definitely something that is important to myself and folks who I've organized with in the Green Party. Looking ahead to the next one. Number four, nonviolence. It is essential that we develop effective alternatives to society's current patterns of violence. We will work to demilitarize and eliminate weapons of mass destruction without being naive about the intentions of other governments. We recognize the need for self defense and the defense of others who are in danger. We promote nonviolent methods to oppose practices and policies, with which we disagree, and will guide our actions toward lasting personal, community, and global peace. So I think this one pretty much speaks for itself, but nonviolent nonviolent forms of protest and nonviolent forms of political action are always going to be a priority and always going to be the preferred way of taking action. That I think pretty much speaks for itself. Number five, decentralization. Centralization of wealth and power contributes to social and economic injustice, environmental destruction, and militarization. We seek a restructuring of social, political, and economic institutions away from a society controlled by and mostly benefiting the powerful few to a democratic, less bureaucratic system. Decision making should, as much as possible, remain at the individual and local level while assuring that civil rights are protected for all. And I'm going to go ahead and read the next one too, because I think they kind of go hand in hand. So, number six, community based economics. We support redesigning our work structures to encourage employee ownership and workplace democracy. We support developing new economic activities and institutions that allow us to use technology in ways that are humane, freeing, ecological, and responsive, and accountable to communities. We support establishing a form of basic economic security open to all. We call for moving beyond the narrow job ethic to new definitions of work, jobs, and income in a cooperative and democratic economy. We support restructuring our patterns of income distribution to reflect the wealth created by those outside the formal monetary economy, those who take responsibility for parenting, housekeeping, home gardens, community volunteer work, and the like. We support restricting the size and concentrated power of corporations without discouraging superior efficiency or technological innovation. So I really think that those two, decentralization and community-based economics, go hand in hand with a lot of the go hand in hand with each other, and they both speak to, I think, what are some of the important economic positions that the Green Party takes, because the Green Party tends to be, and before I go on, I want to just clarify that I'm not aiming to represent the Green Party in any official capacity right now. I'm just speaking for myself, and I am registered as a member of the Green Party. But what I was starting to say there, we tend to be against major wealth gaps where we see small percentages of society owning large percentages of the wealth that exists in a society, while meanwhile we have more than half of working class citizens living paycheck to paycheck and struggling to have their needs met. And we have multi-billionaires who have, some folks have over $100 billion, which I think is just absolutely wild that that is that's a possibility in today's society. Anyway, some of my thoughts might be getting a little bit jumbled together, but I hope that it's making sense what I'm sharing here about being against opposing decentralization and favoring community-based economics over profit-based economics, which really only benefits a small portion of society. So I'll go ahead and move on. We've got a few more key points that I want to get through on this page. Number 7, feminism and gender equity. We have inherited a social system based on male domination of politics and economics. We call for the replacement of the cultural ethics of domination and control with cooperative ways of interacting that respect differences of opinion and gender. Human values such as gender equity, interpersonal responsibility, and honesty must be developed with moral conscience. We recognize that the processes for determining our decisions and actions are just as important as achieving the outcomes we want. So definitely, I definitely would agree, and I think that just about anybody could agree that the American political system has been very dominated by men since its inception. Every U.S. president has been a man, and while focusing on diversity of gender is certainly not the only way to center diverse voices, it is one step, and it is something that I think is important to acknowledge, and that I'm glad that the Green Party does in this way. And the next point is fairly related. It's respect for diversity. We believe it is important to value cultural, ethnic, racial, sexual, religious, and spiritual diversity, and to promote the development of respectful relationships across the human spectrum. We believe that the many diverse elements of society should be reflected in our organizations and decision-making bodies, and we support the leadership of people who have been traditionally closed out of leadership roles. We encourage respect for all life forms and increased attention to the preservation of biodiversity. Definitely. And I think that based on what we see in that first sentence here about valuing all of those different types of diversity, I think that pretty much speaks for itself. And then I'll go ahead and move through these last two. Number 9, personal and global responsibility. We encourage individuals to act to improve their personal well-being and, at the same time, to enhance ecological balance and social harmony. We seek to join with people and organizations around the world to foster peace, economic justice, and the health of the planet. And I'll read that last one. Future focus and sustainability. Our actions and policies should be motivated by long-term goals. We seek to protect valuable natural resources, safely disposing of or unmaking all waste we create, while developing a sustainable economics that does not depend on continual expansion for survival. We must counterbalance the drive for short-term profits by assuring that economic development, new technologies, and fiscal policies are responsible to future generations who will inherit the results of our actions. We must make the quality of all lives, rather than open-ended economic growth, the focus of future thinking and policy. So yeah, I really do appreciate these last 2 points about personal and global responsibility and future focus and sustainability, because tying back a little bit to what I was saying a little bit earlier about fossil fuels corporations being centered around profit rather than focusing on renewable or sustainable forms of energy, which can be more focused on the future sustainability of the planet and the well-being of everybody. I think that it's definitely important to move away from focusing on short-term profit for a small group of individuals at the expense of the planet, as opposed to the long-term sustainability of the planet at a benefit to everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I haven't been keeping up with the chat as I've been reading through that. So I want to go ahead and move back just a little bit um, to see what folks are saying in here, because I want to make sure that I'm doing the best that I can to stay focused here. So I see Cat Ocean says, "Are those who are in the Green Party considered pacifists?" I would say that I would say that it's probably likely that a lot of people in the Green Party would use that label. I don't see that label explicitly used on the Green Party website, but like I did mention, nonviolence is definitely a core value of the Green Party, and I would say that most folks in the Green Party tend to oppose the military industrial complex and oppose just giving money to endless wars. Uh, so yes, I think that wouldn't be a stretch to say that many in the Green Party would consider themselves pacifists. And for those, I use the term military industrial complex. For those who might not be certain of what I mean by that, military industrial complex is sort of a general term that refers to the phenomenon where we have defense contractors or weapons manufacturers like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, just to name a few, who have historically given lots and lots of money to elected officials and don't by donating lots and lots of money to their political campaigns. And when many of those folks get elected, if they've received a lot of their money from weapons manufacturers, they're going to be more likely to approve defense spending or approve government spending for additional military intervention throughout the world, because that will provide a lot of use for the weapons which were manufactured by the companies who donated to their campaigns, which will make it likely that those companies will have to continue to, that make it likely that the governments will have to continue to purchase weapons from the manufacturers, and the manufacturers can continue to donate money to those elected officials' campaigns. So that cycle of elected officials' campaign contributions, which are being made by defense manufacturers who are receiving money from the government to buy more of those weapons to get the country involved in more of the conflicts around the world. That cycle is sort of what I'm talking about when I refer to the military industrial complex. I hope that's making sense. I will say I am still fairly new to kind of sharing my political views publicly, so I hope that it's making sense. Shannon Lee, I see, says, "Love that you're speaking out for what you believe. We need more young adults to do it." Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate it. I'm I'm doing my best here. It can be tough, but I appreciate the support that I'm getting from some of you who are in here. And what I will go ahead and do. Oh, I do see one that's a little bit a couple that are a little bit not as relevant to what I was just reading, but I'll go ahead and acknowledge them really quick too. Donna Leonardo says, "Kelly Copter, I'd love to see a musical collab with you and Jacob. Such talented young people. That would be a lot of fun." I am. Oh, and Kelly Copter is in the chat too. Hey, hi Kelly. Says, "Hey Jacob, loved your Revoke Scientology's tax exempt status song." Yeah, thank you. I saw that you shared it in your live with Marilyn. That was really awesome. And I will say really quick, I wasn't going to get too into this today, but I'm working on some additional verses, and yeah, I would love to maybe reach out to you about a collab. That would be a lot of fun. Sorry, I know I've fallen a little bit behind on the chat, but I'm going to do my best to try to focus on some of the things that I want to platform on here, while also doing my best to stay engaged on here. What I want to go ahead and do now for a moment, I want to talk a little bit about Jill Stein. Now, Jill Stein is currently pursuing the presidential nomination with the Green Party. So what I want to do, what I think is going to help me to communicate her ideas of what she's going to be focused on and what her campaign is focused on, is actually look at her YouTube channel and at some of what she is sharing. So first I'll just go ahead and share her website really quick. So I'm gonna share my screen a couple of different times. There's a couple things that I want to share here. So first off, got too many windows open right now, y'all. Give me just a moment. So this here is jillstein2024.com, which is the website that Jill Stein has started for her presidential campaign. And I would definitely encourage folks to check this out if you want to learn more about her and about her history of organizing with the Green Party and about her her platform and what she stands for. I think that this is going to be a good resource for that. And the other place that I think is going to be a great resource for that is that I would like to share a video from her YouTube channel. So I'll need to make sure that I am sharing audio, also share tab audio, yes. And if there are any audio issues here, feel free to let me know. And in fact, before I start, what might be helpful is if I just put my AirPods in really quick so that way we don't have too much of an echo. So give me just a sec, folks, so that I can make sure. Still getting used to the outlook of everything here. All right, so it looks like my mic should still be connected here. My speaker is AirPods, fantastic. All right, now let's go ahead and have a watch. And like I said, if there's any audio issues, feel free to please let me know.
People are tired of being thrown under the bus by wealthy elites and their bought politicians. Tired of living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to pay the rent, locked in student debt and medical debt, child poverty doubling, rising diseases of despair, growing hopelessness. The political system is broken. The two Wall Street parties are bought and paid for. Over 60% of us now say the bipartisan establishment's failed us, and we need a party that serves the people. I'm Jill Stein, and I'm running for president to offer that choice for the people outside of the failed two-party system. We'll put solutions to the crises we face, crushing inequality, endless war, and climate collapse. And we'll put these front and center in this election and on the ballot across the country. The ruling parties that got us into this mess aren't getting us out. Both parties are squandering trillions on the endless war machine, fueling conflict around the world, while tens of millions here at home lack food, housing, healthcare. Democrats have betrayed their promises for working people, youth, and the climate again and again, while Republicans don't even make such promises in the first place. And both parties are a danger to our democracy, expanding censorship, criminalizing protest, throwing competitors off the ballot, suppressing debates,
American people who've been systematically locked out of these debates,
rigging their primaries. So forget the pundits and the attack dogs who tell you to ignore your misery and just keep voting for those who caused it in the first place. Change won't come from the ruling elites. It comes from we, the people. And when we stand together, we can create living wage jobs for all Americans. We can guarantee an economic bill of rights with the right to a job, to healthcare, to housing, to food, education, and more. We can abolish student debt, medical debt. We can create a Green New Deal with millions of jobs to fight climate collapse and protect Mother Earth. And we can ensure our constitutional rights and freedoms and justice for all. We can end the endless wars and rampant militarism and use diplomacy and international law instead to end violence, occupation, and apartheid. We do have the power, and we can use it in this election to start building an America and a world that works for all of us. Go to JillStein2024.com and join us.
Sorry about that. I had muted myself for a moment there, but thank you guys for checking that out. I appreciate you indulging me for a moment as I shared that. Now, like I've said, like I said a little bit closer to the beginning of the stream, I really can only begin to scratch the surface of some of the issues that we're diving into here. I understand that there are a lot of things, a lot of different issues that were brought up in the video, and a lot of different issues that are central to Jill Stein's campaign that in one YouTube video just can't be adequately discussed. But I figured that looking at the video that she posted to kick off her campaign would be a good way to start, just get the ball rolling as far as kind of introducing you all to some of what I think is very important and what core values are most important to me when it comes to my political beliefs and my own political values, because, like I said, this is an election year, and so I think it's going to be important to continue to be allowed to share what you believe, to continue to amplify the messages that you think are important. And like I said, I'm doing my best to keep an eye on some of the folks who are coming into the chat. And I just want to give a quick reminder that I understand that not everybody is going to agree with me. I understand that some of you are going to have differing political views, and that's totally okay. What I will just ask as a reminder is that folks are being respectful in the chat, and debating is allowed. If you want to express your disagreement, you are allowed to do that. But I'm just going to give a reminder that I'd like for folks to be doing that respectfully. Now, what I want to do for just a moment, I want to engage with a couple of chats and explain a little bit of why I disagree a little bit. And so I'm going to be doing my best to practice what I preach and also be respectful to those of you in the chat who I may disagree with. I see Ultimate Sleep says here, I get you want something different, but she will take away votes from Biden and help Trump win. Jill is a big mistake. So this is definitely something that I hear quite frequently when it comes to voting third party. I'll hear a handful of people who mostly folks who are liberal, folks who are supporters of the Democratic Party, say that I get that you want something different, but voting for a third party candidate is just going to help the Republicans win. And to be honest, this is how I used to look at things. This is how I felt in 2020. In 2020, I will be honest that I voted for Joe Biden. However, over the last few years, seeing the way that the political scene has continued to develop under the Biden administration, there's a lot of issues for which I think, would things be different if Trump had won? Because the biggest difference that I can come up with in some ways between the two of them is the way that they talk and the way that they talk about certain issues. But I mentioned previously that climate tends to be a big issue a big issue that concerns Green Party members. And I think that climate tends to be a useful issue for myself when I'm explaining some of the differences between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, because both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party tend to, and their members, I should say, the candidates who run with those parties, tend to receive a lot of political contributions from big oil companies and big fossil fuel companies. So we'll hear differences in the way that they talk about them. So this is just scratching the surface, just giving a brief example. But it's fairly typical, I'd say, that Republicans will not view climate change as a real issue. In fact, in a lot of cases, Republicans will straight up say that climate change is a hoax. They'll flat out admit that they don't believe it's real. Whereas Democrats, we will tend to hear Democrats acknowledge that climate change is real. And you'll hear Democratic politicians talking about the importance of cutting back on our carbon emissions. However, since President Biden has been in office, he has been taking a lot of money from big oil companies. He's been approving a lot of big oil drilling projects on federal land, on native and indigenous lands. So rhetoric only goes so far if actions are going to be so similar. And I think that same kind of duopoly issue can be applied to a handful of different issues where the two major parties might talk about certain issues using different language, but as far as their actions tend to be very in alignment with each other. So I completely understand. Why folks might have this kind of a mindset of, oh, the Green Party will just take votes away from Biden and help Trump win. But personally, I'm coming at this from the perspective of, I don't think that voting for either a Democratic candidate or a Republican candidate, whether it's Biden and Trump or whether it's different candidates, I think that in a lot of ways, voting for either of those candidates, and if either of those candidates getting elected, is going to lead to a lot of the same outcomes. Just one other quick example has to do with the border crisis, because there were a lot of folks in the Democratic Party who were very, very critical of situations going on at the U.S.-Mexico border, particularly in relation to children, migrant children being kept away from their parents, which is a very serious issue. Now, a lot of the same folks who are very critical of Trump policies on the border issue have not been as critical since Biden has been elected, even though in a lot of ways the same issues have continued to persist under President Biden. Again, I will acknowledge that's a big issue to get into, and it's really hard to get anywhere beyond just scratching the surface of those issues. But I hope that I'm making some sense about why I want to push back against the narrative that voting third party or voting for the Green Party is helping the Republicans. I understand why folks feel that way, because I used to feel that way myself. But the more that I've learned about the way that both parties are very much held up by capital, both major parties are very much propped up by corporations and corporate donors, it's led me to change my mind a bit about this. And my thought is, if this is a democracy, I want to be able to vote for my values. And even if that means supporting a candidate who is less likely to win, I don't want to be dishonest with myself. And I personally have reached a point where voting for a Democratic candidate is not voting in alignment with my values. But I appreciate folks in the chat who are being respectful. Even if you disagree with me, those of you who are disagreeing respectfully, that is something that I do really appreciate. So I will acknowledge that. I want to do my best to engage with some other folks in the chat. Make sure that I'm doing my best to keep up with some of what y'all are saying, because I do want to do what I can to express my own views while also keeping this as an open discussion, because I've asked you all to be respectful of other folks in the chat. I want to make sure that I'm being respectful of you all as well. Now, the Ultimate Sleep I says, either don't vote or you have to choose the lesser of two evils. So this makes me kind of think a little bit more with regard to what I was just saying. I personally just do not like the idea of voting for someone who I acknowledge is evil. And I mean, I'll freely admit it, I'm no fan of President Biden. And if I can acknowledge that I'm not a fan of his policies and that I'm disappointed with the ways that his actions have contradicted his words and contradicted his promises, then that's not somebody that I want to be voting for. So, and if we can acknowledge and agree that he is evil and that he's the lesser of two evils, personally, I'm not somebody who's on board with voting for somebody who I consider to be evil. I do appreciate being respectful when you're do appreciate you being respectful even when you disagree, though. Thank you for that. Still scrolling through the chat some more. Linda says, I'm a lot older than you, Jacob, and I too have decided to vote who I want, not one of the two. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the comment. All right. Selfless Self. Hi, Selfless Self. Says, this is America. You do not have another choice. Please, please don't do this. This is terribly dangerous and terribly destructive. America is evil and we are the world's empire. I don't know if I'm understanding everything that you're saying in here. When you say you don't have another choice, do you mean that you are advocating for voting for one of the two major political parties, or do you mean, yeah, when you say this is terribly dangerous and terribly destructive, America is evil and we are the world's empire? I'm not totally sure. I'm not totally sure that I know what you're meaning there. Oh, okay. And then it looks like you do go on to clarify a little bit. You say, I am an anarchist and I will vote for Biden 1,000 times. So I will clarify. I'm not looking to shame or go after or get in fights with anybody who's voting differently than me. If you engage with my video, if you watch the videos and you still decide I'm going to vote for who I want to vote for, totally fine. I mean, that's part of what it means to live in a democracy, is that you're allowed to vote for who you want to vote for. I'm not looking to start fights here. I'm not looking to burn bridges and end relationships that I've started with some of you who are in the chat, who have been regularly engaging. And as a reminder, I will still be continuing to protest against Scientology and keep an eye on Scientology court cases, and I'll do my best to keep my differing positions and keep the different issues that I'm following kind of organized and separate from one another. But again, thank you for being respectful. Even if you're voting differently than I am, even if you hold different views than I am, I definitely do appreciate those of you who are being respectful in the chat. But yeah, those are just some thoughts that I wanted to share. And thank you for clarifying, Selfless Self. Continuing to come a bit through the chat. All right. Well, okay. Selfless Self, it looks like included a little bit more clarification there. I am saying that all American presidents are evil. They do evil because what we are is evil and always has been. Virtue signaling voting is crazy. So I guess what does still confuse me just a little bit is that if you acknowledge that all American presidents are evil, then I do find it interesting that you're still saying that you would vote for Biden. Now, believe me, this is reminded me of how I tended to look at the political discourse in America in 2020. In 2020, I was already definitely starting to take a bit of a deeper dive into some more left-wing anti-capitalist political theory, although I still definitely had a lot to learn then. And to be honest, now I still have a lot to learn. I'm still definitely continuing to read and continuing to educate myself as best I can. But I understand where you're coming from, because I was definitely somebody who in 2020 had the mindset of, let's settle for Biden. Even though I wasn't a big fan of him, I figured that he was the best option that we had at the time. But currently, after having lived under the Biden administration for the last few years and seeing the way that policies have, in my view, tended to remain fairly consistent with policies of the few years before that, well, that's where I tend to come from it. Lorraine W, I see, says reasonable minds can differ. Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you. Good to see you in here, Lorraine. Mm. Jeff Reborn now says, "OMG, I knew Jacob was cute, but I see he also has a brain." Swoons. Thank you, Jeff. SPTV fans is in here. Says, "Hi, Jacob. Hi, SPTV fans. Good to see you in here." Mandy McGee says, "Selfless self, we should be pushing for a place where it's not just two parties. I understand the stakes right now." Yeah, thank you, Mandy. And thank you very much to Mandy for all that you're doing to help me out with the chat and help me out with pushing the rules out there. I definitely appreciate all the support that you're giving me in here. And as well as big thank you to all of the mods that are in here. And Kimberly Fortney says, "I'm 60 and I don't know what the future generations want. What I can tell you is, if you want freedom in America, then wake up and look at what is going on." Well, yeah, I think that waking up and being aware and being informed, those are definitely the first steps, which is why there's only so far that I can get in just one video here, but just continuing to just beginning to get the ball rolling with conversation about where my politics tend to be grounded, sharing some of my core values, and just sharing an introductory video shared by the candidate who at this time I currently intend to support. That's all really what the biggest goal for today was. But thank you for being in here, Kimberly. I appreciate it. All right. Continuing to come through the chat. Okay, Linda is in here, says, "I just don't understand why I have to plug my nose and vote for someone that I feel is not the right choice." Completely agree with you. And really that's why I would advocate for those who tend to be in alignment with more left-wing or anti-capitalist political ideals and political values. I think that you shouldn't let yourself be bullied or pressured or harassed into voting for the Democratic Party. If your political values are not in alignment with that party, then you don't have to vote for them. And really, that's a big part of what I was trying to communicate. So yeah, thank you for the comment, Linda. Continuing to come through the chat. Hmm. All right, I'm tending to see some more messages that are fairly consistent with a lot of the same kinds of messaging that I've seen before. So I can tell that there are a handful of folks in the chat who tend to be of the opinion that the two major political parties are the only parties that are worth voting for, and voting for another one, a third party, whether it's the Green Party or whether it's another political party. It sounds like a handful of you might view that as a wasted vote, which, like I said, I understand because that was me not long ago as well. But but I still want to stand up for what I believe in. So those of you, if you disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. You're allowed to disagree with me. But like I said, I wanted to just take a moment to get into a little bit of why I feel the way that I feel and why I intend to vote the way that I'll be voting. And that's really the biggest thing that I wanted to get across here. Ultimate Sleep asks, do you do your core values include a woman's right to choose, freedom of speech, LGBTQ rights, the rule of law? If these are part of your values, then we need to keep Trump out. So I will start by answering the first part of your question. Yes, my core values do include a woman's right to choose, freedom of speech, LGBTQ rights, and the rule of law. Those definitely are all a part of my core values. Um, but I still stand by the other things that I've shared. And really quickly, I wasn't planning to necessarily dive too deep into this in this particular video, but regarding the issue of a woman's right to choose, that's another issue that I would kind of put into a similar category, um, of what I was saying with regard to climate, where the two parties will certainly talk about issues differently, but not necessarily always act on their promises. And what I mean by that, of course, it was under Biden administration that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. And shortly after that happened, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that this was about summer of 2021, that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Right around the time that that was happening, many Democratic politicians sent out donation emails, and I was still a registered Democrat at this time. Many of them sent out donation emails requesting money, saying that we were very close to being able to codify Roe v. Wade into law. And I think that many liberals who very much value a woman's right to choose on the topic of abortion did just that, and they donated lots of money to lots of Democratic politicians, but the law was never codified into law. So I think that that raises some questions about, was this really a priority of the Democratic Party and of Democratic politicians to protect a woman's right to choose? Or was it a talking point that enabled them to get more donations? Now, like I said, that wasn't really an issue that I was planning to dive too deep into. And again, it's another issue that in a lot of ways I can really only scratch the surface in a discussion like this one. But I still stand by what I've said before. I feel that voting my values and putting my vote where voting for the candidate who I feel most confident would represent my values and act on their promises rather than just making promises, I still tend to find myself in alignment with the Green Party. All right. And I see Dustin Fountain Avenue says, I'm swimming in Florida and drowning in a huge Trump pool. Yeah, I don't doubt it, Dustin. All right. Google too does say, who put those Supreme Court justices in the Supreme Court? I'm assuming that you're referring to Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, both of whom were confirmed to the Supreme Court by President Trump. And I'm certainly no fans of those justices who were confirmed by President Trump. Although it's still at the same time, this doesn't change the fact that the Biden administration could have potentially codified Roe v. Wade into law. They made comments talking about doing just that. Many Democratic politicians sent out donation emails asking for money from their constituents, hoping to, or claiming that they would be working toward getting Roe v. Wade codified into law, but it didn't happen. Now, I do see Century 172 says he thinks voting is ranked choice. That's not how it works. You have to look at the Electoral College. So I'll acknowledge if you're talking about me when you say he, which I think you are. I understand that we do not currently have ranked choice voting. I have had some involvement with initiatives that are looking to bring ranked choice voting more into the discussion and more into the norm for the way that the political discussions operate. I've had some involvement with Pro-Rep Coalition or Proportional Representation Coalition, which favors ranked choice voting. But you are correct that the Electoral College is the way that political elections are currently held. I will say that I'm not personally a big fan of the Electoral College, but it is true that is a current feature of our electoral system, for better or worse. And Christie says they had decades to codify Roe v. Wade. It's true. I would have loved to have seen it, but just hasn't. It hasn't happened yet. I hope that one day we're able to reinstate federal protection for a woman's right to choose on the issue of abortion. But sometimes many issues like this are easier said than done. Spicy Cat Foster says, I will never apologize for voting my conscience. We really need the people who don't want the jobs. We really need the people who don't want the jobs to have the jobs, if you know what I mean. I totally agree with the first half of that comment about I will never apologize for voting my conscience. I'm not sure that I understand that I fully understand the second half of your comment there. If you want to clarify in the chat, feel free to. I'm continuing to come through a little bit and see if there are other folks who I wanted to folks that I can respond to in here. And Mandy McGee says, I think we should push for the Electoral College to go away, and gerrymandering is unethical, in my opinion. I would definitely agree with both of those. I am no fan of the Electoral College nor of gerrymandering. So, yes, a big agreement all around there. All right, Ultimate Sleep says, Jacob, I am just thankful that you vote in California, so your vote for Joe won't matter. But people in Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin cannot vote for Jill. So it is true that not every single state has gained ballot access yet, and this is part of what's what I think should make the two-party system open to criticism is the fact that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party do not have to fight for ballot access every election cycle. Many other states do have to work pretty hard just in order to obtain ballot access and just in order for candidates to be able to appear on the ballot. Now, as far I can't actually speak with confidence off the top of my head about the states that you named, like Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and then WI, I think, is Wisconsin, right? Um, here's the thing. Is it likely that Jill Stein is going to win the presidential election in 2024? No, she'll definitely have the odds stacked against her. However, it's still important to me to vote for my values, and at the same time, I think that it's going to have an impact if the Green Party, or if any other third party for that matter, is able to take a sizable percentage of the vote, because traditionally, third party candidates tend to kind of get buried by the media. They tend to not be platformed very much. They tend to not have much of an opportunity to share their views on a stage that's large enough for or on a stage that's large enough, or on a platform that's large enough for a majority of the country to pay attention to it. But let's just say hypothetically that the Green Party were to get 10% of the vote this election cycle. Now, would that be enough for the Green Party to win, or for Jill Stein to win the presidential nomination? Well, win the presidential election? No, it wouldn't. But would it be a sizable enough percentage of the vote that mainstream media would no longer be able to completely ignore her? I would say so. I would say that if the Green Party were able to obtain 10% of the vote, then that would bring more attention to the Green Party than the Green Party has received in the past. And I think it would be indicative of the fact that a lot of people are looking for an alternative that's outside of the main two-party system that we're also used to. All right. You see some other folks. Oh, Spicy Cat Foster, it looks like included some clarification here. Good people who can do a good job but don't want to because they don't want to work in politics, which leaves a lot of people feeling icky. Okay, I think that's making a little bit more sense. I mean, yeah, believe me, I get it. But working in politics, or even just discussing politics publicly, is a surefire way to find a lot of people who disagree with you. I mean, I'm even starting to experience a bit of that here myself, as I'm aware that a lot of the people with whom I'm communicating in the chat here are people who live in the United States, who have traditionally voted for one of the two major political parties. So yeah, I mean, I was hesitant to even get into this at all, but I figured, you know what? These are issues that are important to me. These are values that are important to me, and I don't think that Jill Stein or the Green Party, or many of the issues that are important to me and the solutions that I see as legitimate, a lot of them don't get talked about a lot. So that's really what I wanted to kind of get the ball rolling with a little bit for today. Mandy McGee says, please like the live and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much, Mandy. yeah, if you are tuned in, whether you've tuned in before or whether this might be your first time checking out the channel, yeah, if you wanna subscribe, I would definitely appreciate anybody who wants to join the community that we've got building here. Thank you. Linda says we need our voices to be heard. Absolutely. So Stephen Miller says solar and wind is not the answer. It feeds big corporations. Don't be fooled by the BS. Solar and wind are part of the WEF agenda. Nikola Tesla had means for free power. So as far as what exactly the solutions are, as far as the most renewable sources of energy, and the most effective ways to divest from fossil fuels, I don't claim to have all of the answers about here is the exact list of instructions that should be followed in order to obtain more and work toward more sustainable and renewable forms of energy. But I will say that the idea of investing more into solar and wind as opposed to investing into drilling for oil and investing into other fossil fuels, which have a proven track record of hurting environmental causes and increasing CO2 emissions, I do tend to be more favorable toward more sustainable and renewable forms of energy. And I know that those values are in alignment with the values of the Green Party. And so I would be curious to hear more about what makes you say that they feed big corporations, but that's kind of how I tend to approach the idea of renewable and sustainable forms of energy as opposed to fossil fuels. Continue to come down just a little bit more. All right. Jeffrey Bourne says, OMG, I explained it much better than she did. I don't know if I know for sure which comment you're referring to there. What it is that, oh, okay. I see. It looks like you said, I can tell you what she means. She wants people who don't want to rule for power's sake, who reluctantly rule because it is the right thing to do. Okay. Gotcha. Thank you, Jeff. Continuing to come down and check on some more folks who are in the chat. Stephen Miller says, without petroleum products, everything ceases. Wake up, everything is made from petroleum. So I will acknowledge that it is true. It is true currently that petroleum and other fossil fuels do constitute a fairly significant percentage of manufacturing in the United States. However, I will still reiterate that I don't think that just because that's the way that it is doesn't mean that I think that that's the way that it should be. And just because fossil fuels are currently such a significant portion of the US economy doesn't mean that that's not something that we can work away from, and doesn't mean that we can't start heading in a different direction, which is what I would personally love to see. So I understand what you're saying, that many products are made from petroleum, and other fossil fuels do certainly constitute a large part of the American economy and American manufacturing. I would still reiterate that I don't think that's necessarily the way that it needs to be. I definitely think that there are still alternatives that can be worked toward. Century 172 says Grant Cardone. Yeah, I'm not sure I know what you were responding to there. I'm not sure what the what the relevance to Grant Cardone was. For those who don't know, he is a Scientologist and financial guru. I guess I don't even totally know. He's an influencer who promotes himself as somebody who can help people to 10x their income, multiply their income tenfold. And if I'm not mistaken, he and his brother Gary Cardone are currently under some federal investigations for fraud. I haven't given that a whole lot of time. I haven't talked about that a ton on my channel up until now, but I definitely can't say I'm a fan of him. Yeah, I'm not sure if I know which comment you were responding to when you said that, though. All right. Let me keep moving through the chat a bit. And bringing back to a little bit more of the regularly scheduled programming with regard to the Scientology protest. Destin Fountain says, "Please boycott." It says La Taco Bell. I'm sure that you were talking about La Poubelle there, and yes, La Poubelle is not a restaurant that I think that any friend of mine would support. Spicy Cat Foster says, "I will consider voting for any of the candidates who have not been spamming my phone messages." At Jeffrey Born Now, yes, thank you. I could only think of Icky, but you said it so much better. Awesome. Yeah, thank you for the clarifications there. And yeah, I do know that a lot of the more mainstream politicians do tend to have dedicated staffs of folks who like to send out lots of text messages urging people to donate. Mamada Boyer, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but you say hi. Hello to you. Thank you for being here. All right. And Lexi Evans, hi Lexi, good to see you in here. She says, "At the end of the day, people say a lot to get elected. Look at the past. We need action now. We can only hope for anything better." Agreed, definitely. And thank you for being here, Lexi. It's good to see you in here. And Spicy Cat Foster says Aaron Smith Levin has a lot of videos on Grant. Yes, he does. So those of you who are interested in getting more information about the lowdown of what is currently going on with Grant Cardone and all of his, his ongoing investigations, ongoing financial troubles, ongoing whatever may be going on in his life, Aaron Smith Levin over at Growing Up in Scientology is definitely a good resource for all of that. All right. Well, it is nearly 5 o'clock here, and I do have some classwork coming up that I will have to be getting to shortly. I know that I did. I know that I did have some additional links that were in the. I did have some additional links that were in the description of this video, which I did not get to today. A lot of them pertained to issues that I will likely give some more airtime to in the coming weeks as we get closer to the primaries and closer to the general election in November. But I will just say again that I do appreciate everybody who joined in today and everybody who was being respectful in the chat. I knew that not everybody was going to agree with me, and like I said, that's okay. I would be surprised if everybody did agree with me. But I am appreciative of everybody who was in here being respectful. And let me see if there's just a couple more chats that I can address really quickly before I wrap up for today. I see that Stephen Miller says, "Yes, vote for who you want to vote for, but you must make them work for you. Go to your member's office. You are locked out. They don't listen to people." So yeah, I actually do have some stories that I could share at some point about speaking with my representatives, particularly when I lived up in the Bay Area. I attended town halls for Representative Jimmy Panetta several times while I was living in the 19th Congressional District in San Jose, California. So yeah, maybe I'll share some more stories about that another point, because there's definitely a lot to get into there, and like I said, I will have to wrap up before too long here. Brit333 says, "Just joining. I know you're in California, so how do you feel about the Democratic Party talking about Newsom being their new frontrunner?" I haven't actually heard this confirmed by anybody officially representing the Democratic Party. Um, I have heard liberals or folks who are registered Democrats say that they would be a fan of him. I've heard folks say that they are bigger fans of Newsom than they are of Biden. Personally, I tend to believe that his allegiance would likely be fairly in alignment with the allegiance of Joe Biden and other Democratic Party leaders and other Democratic Party officials. So yeah, again, he's still not somebody who I would consider myself personally a big fan of, but well, you know what? We'll see what happens. As it's appeared to me so far, it does appear that President Biden is likely to continue to be the Democratic frontrunner. leading into the general election. But you know what? We've still got months to go. We'll continue to see. All right. Century 172 says, "Bro blocked me." I'm not sure who you're talking about. I hope that you don't mean me. I'm still able to see your comments. I didn't make any. I haven't blocked anybody in this stream. So yeah, I'm not sure who you're talking about, but I hope not. Spicy Foster, yeah, throwing it back to the beginning of the video. It looks like says, "Oh yeah, news about Danny and Cam is great. Absolutely." All right. Christian Watson says, "What do you think about libertarianism, Jacob?" It's a good question. And so libertarianism, I think, can be interpreted in a few different ways because there's the Libertarian Party, which I tend to think of as a far right party, which I can't say I'm a big fan of. But the term libertarianism can also be used to refer more to just individual and personal freedom. And there is a political spectrum. In fact, let me see if I can just share an image of it so that you can see what I am talking about when I refer to the political spectrum, because it shows, yeah. So this is what might take me just a second to pull up the image so that it can be seen in the way that I wanted to show you all. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen for just a moment, because libertarianism can, like I said, it can refer to just personal freedom and the rights of individuals to do as they please. So I'm going to present and share my screen. And let me go ahead and share the window that I just pulled up. So this image right here, on here, we can see, let me scooch out just a little bit, that there's 4 quadrants. And there's left and right, and then authoritarian moving upward and libertarian moving downward. So the libertarian left, that tends to be where the Green Party falls. So sometimes you'll hear folks who are in the Green Party or folks who share a lot of core values with the Green Party refer to themselves as left-wing libertarians or socialist libertarians who tend to be a fan of policies that will lead to sustainability and be focused more on meeting people's needs rather than securing a profit, while also prioritizing individual freedoms. So this does tend to be where I tend to find myself as far as these 4 quadrants go. But a lot of times, because the Libertarian Party tends to be a more right-leaning party, and that tends to fall more into this right-wing, this bottom right quadrant, which is libertarian right, I think a lot of people tend to just naturally associate the term libertarianism with right-wing politics, which it doesn't necessarily have to be. You can be a left-wing libertarian, you can be a socialist libertarian, and this bottom left corner tends to be where I would say that the Green Party tends to be most in alignment with. I hope that makes sense. Sometimes when I'm addressing questions where what I wasn't necessarily planning to get into on a stream, it can be a little bit tougher to keep some of my thoughts organized. But I hope that made some sense. But thank you for the question. I appreciate it, Christian. And Linda says, "Thank you, Jacob, for opening up an honest debate. This is what's needed to bring our country together." Yeah, I totally agree. And Guy Bassett says, "Biden has said that if he does not run this year, he wants Gavin Newsom to take his place. Look it up." That may be. I haven't. Yeah, if that's true, I did not know that. I haven't seen him say that, so I will have to look that up. But thank you for sharing. Savannah Gary says, "Regarding Julian Assange, Andrew Gold interviewed his wife on his channel Heretics. This is added to support Jacob Clark Kent in his interest in the case, not to take away from him." Thank you for letting me know. I hadn't seen that he did that, so I will have to check that out. I know that I've seen a handful of interviews with Andrew Gold and other ex-Scientologists, so that's certainly going to be interesting to see him interviewing Stella Assange. I'll have to check that out. Thanks for letting me know. And Dustin Fountain Avenue says, I need help paying for live streaming equipment. I'm over $500 just today. How can I get help? Um, I'm sorry to hear that you've already had to invest so much money. What I would recommend is if you set up a link tree, and this is something that we can talk about off air too. But Linktree tends to be a resource that I use to compile a lot of my links to different social media channels and different payment accounts to be able to just make kind of a one-stop shop if folks want to support. If you have PayPal or Venmo or Cash App, you can include those links in a link tree, and maybe we can amplify that to help get some folks to support you. But yeah, we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch once I end the stream as well. All right. Continuing to through the chat a little bit to see who else there was anybody else that I wanted to engage with really quick. Well, it looks like those were the majority of the comments and the ideas that I wanted to get through really quick. One other thing that I just want to touch on really quick has to do with the debate that is happening, if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow. Yes, it is going to be happening tomorrow. So I think I'll share my screen one more time. One sec. Come back here, present, share screen. So there's an organization called Free and Equal Elections that is going to be hosting a debate tomorrow, which I'm actually really excited to see how it turns out. It's I haven't tuned into debates that are like this in the past, but this debate that's happening tomorrow, the candidates who were invited and who some of whom have confirmed that they will be there were essentially crowdsourced, and folks from anywhere were able to vote on which candidates they wanted to see attend this debate that's happening tomorrow. So it'll be streamed tomorrow from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which for me is going to be 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It'll be streamed by Rumble. And let's take a look at which candidates are going to be there. So it'll be moderated by Christina Tobin. And the confirmed candidates include Jill Stein of the Green Party, Chase Oliver of the Libertarian Party, Lars Mapstead of the Libertarian Party, Jasmine Sherman of the Unicorn Party. I'm not familiar with the Unicorn Party. That'll be interesting to learn a little bit more about. And then Claudia de la Cruz of the Socialist Party, or I think the Party for Socialism and Liberation is the more accurate name for the political party that she belongs to. Now, other candidates who were invited include Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's an independent, and Cornel West, who is an independent. It appears that they have not yet confirmed whether or not they will be there, but I did want to just platform this really quick because this will be happening tomorrow, and this will be an opportunity for candidates who don't get as much traction and don't get as much exposure in the mainstream media to get their messages out there a little bit more. So I wanted to bring that up real quick, and now I'm going to be wrapping up fairly soon, but I can check real quick and see if there is anything else to address in the chat. I do see that David B says, love this open topic chat. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. Thanks for being here, David. All right. Looks to me like oh, Lexi Evans says, I'm back. Sorry, house animal sitting for my parents. No worries. No need to apologize, but I appreciate you being here. David B says, Jacob, I sent a letter to the OAG in an attempt to initiate an investigation into the corrupt connections between LE and COS. I encourage everyone to do the same. Do I know what you're referring to with all those? I know COS. I'm sure you're talking about Church of Scientology. Don't know for sure if I know all of the other everything else that you're mentioning there. I'd be curious if you want to clarify real quick. Feel free to. I will be wrapping up before too long, but if you want to just remind me what OAG and LE are referring to, I'm curious to know because I'm not sure. But in the meantime, what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to end the stream in just a moment. I'll maybe hang out for just another moment, just in case just in case we get some clarification about what those acronyms refer to, because yeah, now I'm very curious myself. Okay. LAPD, LA equals Law Enforcement and Office of Attorney General. Got it. Got it. Thank you very much. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and say thank you again to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to everybody who was engaging respectfully in the chat. This will certainly not be the last political discussion that I have on here. And yeah, Jeffrey Bordenau says, bye, Jacob. Have a great evening. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I hope you have a great evening as well. Dustin Fountain Avenue says, Good for governor. William Good is definitely somebody who I would support myself. But in the meantime, maybe more on that later. In the meantime, I hope everybody has a great night. I hope everybody stays safe. Thanks again to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to all of the mods. I will see you next time. I'll be out there on the streets Friday, but maybe talking to you all before that. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.